Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I'm proud with my caucus to stand for the sanctity of life. In a state where we have no limits on the killing of babies, that is simply just not enough. Today we have to celebrate it yet again. Most of this body celebrated it with the Speaker on opening day, and again, the majority of this body celebrated it during the Governor's State of the State address. To make it even more grievous for me, the day the Governor spoke of living in the free state of Colorado for everyone but the unborn was my daughter's Angel Day. Emerson Riley Bradley was a beautifully and perfectly made baby who died in my womb. Many in this body attempt to diminish the significance of my baby and of my family's loss by saying she was just a clump of cells, when in fact she was as alive as anyone in this room. I watched her beautiful body be molded with its perfectly functional organs, including her heart, which beat from 4 weeks until the day she died. I will say it again louder for the people in the back. For her to have a beating heart and for that heart to stop beating means she was alive, just like any other being we give life to. Emerson was so loved in her short life. Her dad and I washed all of her clothes, carefully cut off each tag so as not to disturb her newborn skin. We decorated her nursery with attention to every single detail and made sure to carefully put her car seat into my car to make sure she would be safe and protected. We were 4 short weeks away from delivering our beautiful daughter, 10 fingers, 10 toes, and a strong beating heart when the unimaginable happened. We delivered a beautiful and perfect little girl that we held and said goodbye to, a baby that we desperately wanted and had prayed for many, many years. And in an instant, my life went from extreme joy to an unbearable and excruciating pain that no human should ever have to bear. And I began wondering how I would be able to get out of bed every morning and put one foot in front of the other. And even 18 years later, I still have many days like this. It is hard to accept the fact that in a state in which I live and where I'm raising 4 young men, my daughter could have been legally killed at the same time, just 4 short weeks from her delivery date, or even up until the day she was supposed to be born. In this so-called free state of Colorado, we protect almost everything more than we protect babies. We protect chicken eggs and wolves even more than we protect our own little ones. And as you stand with thunderous applause for the murder of innocent children, I ask you to think about what you are communicating to the women in Colorado desperately praying to start a family of their own, the women who will never have a baby of their own, the women struggling with infertility, the many women in our state mourning a miscarriage or 2 or 3 or a stillbirth or a baby who died upon birth. To those women I say, I see you and I feel your grief. To you in this room, I ask you to remember those of us mothers still grieving the loss of something that this state has characterized as a clump of cells. I ask you to remember the siblings of these babies and the many fathers grieving the loss of our babies and the lives that will never be lived. And for some reason, God has kept me in this state, and I have to deal with some of the most radical abortion laws in this country. In fact, only 3 states, including Colorado, allow abortion up until the moment of birth, only 3. And when people have the audacity to tell me that late-term abortions are not happening in our state, then I ask them, why in the world would we have a radical law to allow it if it wasn't happening? Because the truth is that it is happening. And if that wasn't far enough, the state has now enshrined this into our Constitution and has allowed minors to get abortions without even getting parental consent. I will make an informed guess that if the shoe were on the other foot and a constitutional amendment to allow 12-year-olds to purchase handguns without parental consent were to pass, many in this body would lose their minds arguing that youth are unable to make proper decisions about such items. Yet it's somehow, in good old-fashioned hypocrisy in this case, 12-year-olds have the brain function to understand the ramifications of feticide and the lifelong repercussions of possible sterility.
Does this body take into account that 60% of post-abortive women report having wanted their child but felt coerced to have an abortion? Does that sound like choice to you? I will tell you, I will continue to fight against the false narratives that my daughter in my belly was not a life. And I will continue to fight to celebrate her life and the lives of millions of babies slaughtered every year under the guise of reproductive rights. I prayed this morning that the people in this chamber would listen to me with open ears and open hearts and hear a different perspective. There are women in your districts grieving and mourning the loss of their babies while they watch their representatives stand in thunderous applause for the slaughter of innocent lives. Let me be very clear. Colorado is not a pro-choice state. To be able to make a choice, one must be given all the information necessary to make that choice. Yet in Colorado, our policies actively work to deny her access to that information. Do we encourage her to acquire an ultrasound of her child before aborting it? No. Perhaps because an overwhelming majority of women keep their children after they see and hear that tiny heart beating on the screen. Do we suggest she look to the various community organizations, and God bless you, you're doing God's work, that exist to help her navigate the uncertainties of an unplanned pregnancy? No. Instead, Colorado demonizes those groups and cuts women off from seeking out their aid. Those are some of the ways we could help women make an informed choice. But let's be honest, we are not a pro-choice state. We are a pro-death state. Please let that be your lesson. No matter how you try to spin this or wrap it up with a pretty little bow, what we are celebrating today is death. You celebrate the intentional ending of life for the most vulnerable among us. Thank you.